There are moments in sports that stop time completely. Moments where the crowd holds its breath, where commentators lose their carefully chosen words, where even the most seasoned athletes on the opposing bench turn to each other with wide eyes and open mouths as if asking, "Did that just happen?" These are the moments that define careers, build legends, and remind us exactly why we fell in love with basketball in the first place. Caitlin Clark creates those moments on a nightly basis. She does not just play basketball. She transforms it into something closer to performance art, where every dribble carries intention, every pass threads an impossible needle, and every shot launched from distances that would make most professional players laugh carries the very real possibility of dropping cleanly through the net. What you are about to read is a deep dive into some of the most breathtaking, jaw-dropping, and genuinely unforgettable moments from Caitlin Clark's rise as one of basketball's most electrifying players. From deep threes launched with defenders draped all over her, to bullet passes that left teammates stunned, 2-and-1 conversions that sent arenas into complete chaos, this is the story of a player who is rewriting what we thought was possible. Buckle up, because this is only the beginning. It begins the way so many Clark moments begin. The ball swings around the perimeter, moving quickly and deliberately, the kind of ball movement that reflects a team operating at full confidence. McDonald and Canada work the top of the key. Cunningham circles around, reading the defense, probing for weakness. Then comes the handoff to Clark. What happens next takes roughly 2 seconds, but it feels like it unfolds in slow motion for everyone watching. Clark receives the ball and immediately assesses the defense. She sees the shot clock winding down. 5 seconds. 4. Rather than forcing a rushed decision or settling for a safe pass, she muscles her way inside, absorbs contact, and flips the ball up with the kind of soft touch that only comes from thousands and thousands of hours of practice. The ball kisses the glass and falls through the net, and she drew the foul. The arena reacts before the referee even signals the call, and in one for Caitlin Clark. The crowd is already on its feet, but it is just getting started. One of the most underappreciated aspects of Caitlin Clark's game is how brilliantly she makes the players around her better. Yes, the deep threes get the headlines, and rightfully so. But watch carefully during a full Indiana Fever possession, and you start to notice something remarkable happening beneath the surface. The ball moves. It really moves. On one particular sequence, the Fever execute what can only be described as textbook team basketball. Players set screens, cut to open spaces, and trust each other to make the right reads. Clark orchestrates the entire possession like a conductor leading an orchestra, knowing exactly when to hold the ball and when to let it go. Katie Lou Samuelson finds herself open in the corner. Can she convert the three? Boston crashes the boards when the shot doesn't fall, securing the rebound and keeping the possession alive. Clark gets another look, a good look, and she gets it to go in. But then comes the moment that sends the entire building into another stratosphere entirely. Clark, with defenders already starting to track her movements and anticipate her next decision, rises up from deep, really deep. The kind of deep that makes basketball coaches wince and basketball fans scream. She releases the ball with complete mechanical precision, and the arena erupts before it even arrives at the rim. That is the Clark effect. The crowd does not wait to see if it goes in. They already know. There is a particular type of deep three-pointer that Caitlin Clark shoots that deserves its own category in basketball. It is not simply a long two-pointer extended a few feet beyond the arc. It is not a heave born from desperation or poor shot selection. It is a calculated, confident, technically sound jump shot launched from coordinates on the basketball floor that most players simply do not consider as shooting territory. In one sequence that quickly becomes the talk of social media and sports broadcasts simultaneously, Clark comes off an Erickson screen, pulls up, and launches from a distance that leaves commentators scrambling for the right words. There is a brief pause in the broadcast, the kind of pause that only happens when someone on the call cannot quite believe what they are seeing. Then the net moves. 3 points. Off a free screen later in the game, Clark sidesteps her defender, creating just enough separation to get her feet set, and launches another deep three. The step itself is a thing of beauty, a quick, confident shift that creates about 18 inches of space between her and the defender. 18 inches is apparently more than enough for Caitlin Clark. The ball is already on its way before the defender can recover. The bench reaction alone is worth watching on a loop. Her teammates look at each other the way people look at each other when they have just witnessed something they are not sure they were supposed to see. It is equal parts joy, disbelief, and pride. Here is something that the casual observer sometimes misses when watching Caitlin Clark play. She can flat out defend. During 1 second quarter sequence, with the Fever fighting to stay within striking distance. Clark reads a passing lane, times her movement perfectly, and comes up with a block that completely changes the momentum of the possession. The crowd reacts with almost as much intensity as they would for one of her signature threes, because there is something deeply satisfying about a player proving that their investment in the game goes beyond scoring. Immediately after the block, Lexi Hull spots Clark pushing in transition. She finds her with a quick pass, and suddenly the Fever are back within 4 points. The momentum has shifted. The building feels it. The bench feels it. And anyone watching at home or in the stands knows that when Caitlin Clark catches fire in moments like these, the gap on the scoreboard starts to feel a lot less important than the energy inside the building. If there is a single play that captures everything electrifying about Caitlin Clark in one contained moment, it might be the one that sends commentators into near hysterics and brings fans jumping completely out of their seats. Clark drives, absorbs the contact without flinching, and somehow converts while getting fouled. The call comes in, and one. Caitlin Clark has an N1. The commentator does not just say it. He announces it with the kind of energy typically reserved for championship-deciding plays, because in terms of crowd reaction and atmosphere, that is exactly what it feels like. What makes this play so special is not just the finish. It is the decision-making that preceded it. Clark identified the defensive rotation, understood exactly how much space she had to work with, and made the aggressive choice rather than the safe one. She went to the basket knowing contact was coming. She finished anyway. That is not just athleticism. That is basketball intelligence combined with fearlessness, and it is a combination that is genuinely rare at any level of the sport. One of the consistent themes throughout any Clark highlight package is the way she forces defenses to completely reorganize their game plans around her presence. When a player can reliably shoot from 30 feet away, defenders cannot afford to give her even a moment of space beyond half court. They have to chase her across the entire floor, following every movement, every cut, every shimmy and hesitation. This creates something fascinating and almost paradoxical. The more aggressively defenders guard Clark beyond the three-point line, the more space opens up inside for her teammates. The Fever run a beautiful pin-down action that springs aerial powers for an open look precisely because the defense is stretched so thin trying to account for Clark's shooting range. A second-round pick out of Marquette, who has genuinely found her place in the WNBA, Powers benefits directly from the gravitational pull that Clark generates every time she steps on the floor. And when Clark draws the double team after her shot fake, she does not panic or force the shot. She reads the coverage, locates Aaliyah Boston in the post, and lobs the ball up with perfect touch for an easy finish. Just another connection. Just another reminder that Clark's basketball IQ matches her physical tools in every measurable way. Ask anyone who has attended a Caitlin Clark game what moment made them feel like they were witnessing something historic, and a significant number of them will describe some version of the step-back three. The sequence builds simply enough. Clark receives the ball on the perimeter, surveys the defense, and then executes a sharp step-back move that creates just enough space for her to rise up and shoot. The ball leaves her hands on a beautiful arc and drops through the net with the kind of authority that suggests it was never going anywhere else. Nothing energizes a crowd quite like a Caitlin Clark step back. The roar that follows is immediate and overwhelming, the kind of sound that seems to come from somewhere deep in the collective chest of everyone in the building simultaneously. Fans leap from their seats. Teammates on the bench stand up and celebrate. Even the arena staff cannot help reacting. And here is the thing, this is no longer surprising to anyone in attendance. Fans now come to games expecting unbelievable moments from Caitlin Clark. They expect the step back. They expect the deep three. They expect the impossible shot to go in. The fact that it keeps happening game after game, sequence after sequence, means the bar keeps rising and Clark somehow keeps clearing it. There are players who perform when the game is comfortable and the pressure is low. And then there are players who actually elevate when everything is on the line, when the shot clock is running down, when the defense is at its most intense, when the moment demands more than athletic ability alone. Caitlin Clark belongs firmly in the second category. With 6 seconds on the shot clock and defenders closing hard, Clark launches a deep three that drops cleanly through the net. The commentator's reaction is immediate and unfiltered. With 3 seconds left in a possession that seems destined to end without points, Clark gets it off anyway and draws the foul. In moments that would cause most players to hesitate or settle for the safe play, Clark becomes more aggressive, more decisive, and more dangerous. This is what coaches mean when they talk about a player with a championship mentality. It is not about being unafraid. It is about converting fear into focus and letting the preparation that went into thousands of repetitions in empty gyms take over when the lights are brightest. Beyond the basketball itself, there is something worth examining about the way Caitlin Clark moments travel across the internet and into the broader cultural conversation. A deep three in the third quarter of a regular season WNBA game becomes a trending clip within minutes of occurring. Social media accounts dedicated to basketball highlights see their engagement numbers spike dramatically anytime Clark content appears. Sports television programs that previously paid minimal attention to the WNBA find themselves replaying her highlights on morning shows and primetime broadcasts. This is not accidental, and it is not simply the result of traditional media promotion. Caitlin Clark creates genuinely viral basketball moments because the shots she takes and makes are inherently shareable. When something looks impossible and then happens anyway, human beings are hardwired to share the experience with others. Clark triggers that response repeatedly, consistently, and in ways that feel authentic rather than manufactured. Even opposing players and coaches have been caught on camera reacting with something close to admiration when Clark does something remarkable. That cross-sport, cross-competitive respect is perhaps the clearest signal that what she is doing transcends the normal boundaries of athletic accomplishment. Somewhere in between the deep threes and the and-one conversions, it is worth pausing to appreciate the full scope of what Caitlin Clark brings to a basketball floor. The handles that allow her to navigate traffic and create her own shot from virtually anywhere. The behind-the-back passes that arrive at precisely the right moment, threading through defensive rotations that most players would not even recognize as passable. The assist totals that reflect a genuine commitment to elevating teammates rather than accumulating personal statistics. Clark does not just ask for the ball when the situation calls for her to score. She asks for the ball when the situation calls for her to make the right play, whatever that play happens to be. Sometimes it is a pull-up three from 30 feet. Sometimes it is a lob to a cutting big. Sometimes it is a behind-the-back dime that arrives in Nwamuel's hands at exactly the right angle for an easy conversion that makes the score jump by 2 more points. That is a complete basketball player, not a specialist, not a scorer who happens to play defense occasionally. A complete, well-rounded basketball player who happens to also be capable of launching deep threes that make arenas lose their minds. What we are witnessing with Caitlin Clark is something that does not come along very often in professional sports. We are watching a legend being built in real time, possession by possession, shot by shot, highlight by highlight. We are seeing a player who arrived at the professional level already carrying enormous expectations, and who has not just met those expectations, but consistently exceeded them in ways that feel genuinely surprising even to her most devoted supporters. The deep threes from impossible range. The step back creates that leave defenders grasping at air. The and-one conversions that bring entire arenas to their feet simultaneously. The behind-the-back passes that arrive like gifts delivered at exactly the right moment. The blocks in the second quarter that shift momentum when the team needs it most. The clutch shots with single-digit seconds on the clock that drop through the net as if physics cooperated with her plan all along. Every single one of these moments adds another layer to a legacy that is still very much being written. Caitlin Clark is not a finished product. She is not a player who has reached the ceiling of her ability and is now simply executing at a consistent level. She is still growing, still developing, still discovering new ways to make the basketball world stop and stare. And that might be the most exciting thing of all. Because if she is already doing this now, if she is already creating these kinds of moments at this stage of her career, then the question every basketball fan should be asking themselves is a simple but genuinely thrilling one. What happens next? If history is any guide, and Clark's track record suggests it absolutely is, the answer involves a deep three from well beyond the arc, a crowd that erupts before the ball reaches the net, and another moment that gets added to an ever-growing collection of highlights that remind us exactly why we watch basketball in the first place. She is not just playing the game, she is changing it, and we are lucky enough to be watching it happen right now. If you loved these Caitlin Clark moments, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible basketball highlight. The best moments are always just around the corner.